Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us here at Next. My name is Angel, and he is the Flying Dutchman, and we're from The Big Show on Kiss92. You can listen to us every weekday from 6 to 10 a.m. One of us is missing, but you'll just have to deal with two of us. Anyway, we are here to discuss Budget 2023 with some very important guests that we have today. Now, this session is organized by REACH, the Government Feedback and Engagement Unit.
We're really glad to be here and to see all of you here. I hope later when we do the question and answers, you'll all have questions for us, because I think that is the most important thing. You need to bring those questions forward so we can work with those questions. Today's session is an opportunity for you to clarify the budget. I listened to the budget. I walked away with some things from it, but not all of it, because I think there are very few people who can sit down and go, I understood the whole budget.
Yeah, that's
honestly.
true. And please don't be shy with the questions. You can ask anything, and we have our special guests that will be answering that. If you're watching us live on the Kiss92 Facebook page, remember that you too can input your questions into the comment section, and we'll try to get to every one of those questions today.
Okay, so let's introduce the people we have on stage with us who are going to be part of our panel this afternoon, and let them tell you a little bit about themselves. First, we have Grassroots Advisor to Ang Mo Kio GRC, from a government perspective, I guess, Ms. Nadia Samdin. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Nadia.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Happy weekend. Sorry to be taking up some of your weekend time. I hope you're getting a good one with your families. My name is Nadia. As FD said, I serve in Ang Mo Kio, so I look after a lot of seniors. About half of my residents are over the age of 55, so tending towards being a senior. And I think a lot about that, about, what kind of life I hope that they get to live, and their children and all that. So, of course, there's a senior perspective. I also serve as the youngest member of parliament, so definitely for the youths. Although we have someone who's even younger, I think both of them are even younger than me. So, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being here this afternoon. Speaking of the youth and young people, we do have someone who will be representing the perspective of the younger set. We have a student from SMU, Mr. Chan Jun Kit. Good afternoon.
Hey, hello, good afternoon, and good afternoon to everybody here, online and in person. Great that you guys could join us for our short little chat today. So as mentioned, I'm a student, a year 3 student in SMU. I'm also, what I like to do in my free time, I guess, as a student, besides studying, of course, that's really important. It's also to help out in the community as well as in my school activities, school life as well. So I'm active in CCAs and different volunteering aspects as well. So I think that's something interesting about me, I guess.
All right. And representing the business perspective, founder of Megorium Private Limited is Ms. Oh Chu Sien. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in and joining us both online and physically. So my name is Chu Sien, and I am startup founder of Megorium. And what we do, it's very interesting. So we take all your plastic waste, the dirty, contaminated ones, we process it, and we turn it into a road construction material to pave greener roads. So all your tapao boxes, all of this, even without washing, we can actually recycle them. So hopefully we aim to make an impact by increasing the recycling rates of Singapore while paving greener roads. So that's what we do.
But for the avoidance of doubt, we should all wash our recycling.
Oh yes,
before
definitely.
we put them into the blue bin, please.
I'm sorry, still, yes, please clean all your recyclables.
But at least someone's doing something with the ones that aren't washed. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. So it looks like we're going to have some very diverse opinions and views today. Now, Budget 2023 it's important. There's definitely a lot of discussion that's gone on in Parliament. There's a lot of discussion that's gone on in the streets. A lot of people are talking about it. Not everybody quite understands it. Let's start with you, Nadia. Why is this budget important?
Well, I think the truth is that budget actually hits a lot closer to home to everyone, I think. You come back at the end of every month, you have a household budget, and you think about how to spend it. At certain points of your life, maybe healthcare may be more important. Certain times of your life, you're able to put some money aside for a rainy day. Other times, you need to think about your child's tuition, etc. And that's very much what the budget is ultimately. It's a strategy, it's a plan about how we're going to spend our money for the year ahead. And actually, just what do you think is the highest proportion of spend in the budget? Some guesses.
Guesses?
I don't want to get this wrong, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to guess.
Okay, being a small country, defense is something that's important to us.
Right.
But other than that, it's really the social spend that's the highest. Healthcare, education, housing. These are all things where you see the highest spend in the budget. So things that really affect us on an everyday basis.
Okay.
Okay, so what are your overall thoughts then on this year's budget, and which one of the measures really piqued your interest?
Me first?
Let's
you
start
can
with you
go
first.
first.
And
You
then
can
we'll
go
move
first,
down the
of
line.
course, and then we'll go down.
Okay. I think one thing that really resonated very strongly is the impact on young families and the intention to, a lot of times actually when you see a lot of the measures that we've been taking in the past years, really focus on our seniors as well. We've also had Pioneer Generation, Merdeka Generation, etc. Healthcare is something that's incredibly important as we prepare ourselves for the year ahead. But there was a very strong focus on young families, and I think that really goes to the heart of us wanting to assure young Singaporeans that this is still a place for us in Singapore. We are very conscious about cost of living. We know that people want a home. We understand that, we want a blue and green world for our next generation to live in. So that focus, I think, really came through. And some of the things that, the MPs have been pushing for over the years as well has come true. For example, longer paternity leave. Just nice next year is the year of the dragon.
Yeah.
So expect more babies, I hope.
Jun Kit, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I agree with Nadia actually. Two things that really stood out for me, being the younger crowd, right? Someone who isn't working, would obviously one of it be the young families, especially with things like paternity leave. Being a guy myself, that would be really useful. It also, the talk about additional ballot for certain families as well for the BTO scheme, as well as extra money for baby bonus. Those are actually quite useful and quite important to me. And one more thing that I found quite good was the extra support that the budget actually gives us in terms of things like GST vouchers and different kinds of reliefs that we get from that. So as someone who isn't working yet, these measures actually tell me that, hey, the government is actually supporting us through this period where there's inflation and where cost of living is actually rising. So those two are quite important for me personally. But if you were to ask my friends, a lot of people don't really watch or understand the budget. They just ask, is the government giving us money or not?
Yeah. That's all they care about, right?
Yeah.
When am I getting money in my bank account?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we have today's session for. If you have any questions, remember you can always ask us a little later on. How about you, Chu Sian? What did you pick up on when you watched the budget?
So for myself, I think what really stood out was how much the government is really spending on innovation, encouraging the growth of innovation in Singapore. So I think one of the enhancement was the innovation tax rebates. In the past, it was always in the form of credits. But if you want startups to be more innovative, to spend more on R&D, it takes startups a while to get to a profitable stage whereby you pay taxes. So at this point, I think how the government enhanced it is that we can actually cash back up to a certain amount. I think it was 20K, if I'm not wrong. So I think this would really, really help startups, innovative deep tech startups, in terms of defraying a lot of R&D costs, rather than just keeping it in the form of credits, filing it nicely and wait for profitability and then using it. So there was something that I think will truly help startups like myself and my peers in terms of innovation and defraying the cost. Another thing that I felt was really interesting was the job skills integrator scheme. So in my industry, it's a lot of it's waste management and construction. So a lot of very matured workers and things like that. But with the amount of innovation, that even my startup and other startups that I've seen trying to go into all these mature spaces, you see all the mature workers being left out because they are not trained in the whole innovation area. They cannot adapt fast enough. So I really hope to see how this pans out in terms of really upskilling all the mature workers. They have vast amounts of experience that we can tap on, but if you give them the adaptability to adapt to the current climate, I believe that they have so much more to offer.
I've got one thing to say and I only bring it up because Jun Ket brought it up, the baby bonus. Now this was handled in the press, and people are talking about it in the streets. The baby bonus is 20 years old. Yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years. Every year we give out money for you to have a baby. But the baby rate ain't going up. Anybody got any ideas? How do we get that baby rate up? Because honestly, the bonus is great.
Well, we did ask this on air, didn't
Yeah.
we? What would it take for you to have a baby? I mean, honestly.
So Jun Ket, what would it take? Well, obviously you've got to get married first, but never mind that one. But what would it take for you to have a baby?
Before I get married, I need to find a girlfriend first.
Anybody out there? Any takers?
Anybody?
Nice, smart, good-looking young man is
Yeah.
up for grabs here.
No, but really, what would it take?
I feel like it would move less. It would be a bit less about the financial aspect, but nowadays, I suppose, for us, besides the cost, it's about whether when we have a child, the child will grow up in a place that is abundant, full of opportunities, where the child can grow up healthily, where the child can grow up to be successful. So, I mean, the challenges that's facing our generation as a whole includes things like climate change. I mean, the weather has been crazy this couple of days. You have rising sea levels, things like that. So all this uncertainty brings about the uncertain nature of whether we want to bring our kids into this world and whether or not the world or even Singapore is a place where we can actually raise our kids in a safe place where they will have the best future and a successful future. Because what all parents want to do is for their kids to be successful and to be more successful than them. So besides the financial aspects, the entire aspect about creating this certain future, creating the certainty, as well as the entire support system would be quite important in terms of whether I decide to have a kid or not. As of now, the answer still remains yes. But that depends on a lot of things, including my love life, the cost of living, of course, which the government is helping a lot more with, as well as social factors that come into play.
I like how you came from the social aspect. Yeah.
It's quite interesting. There is only one thing you did leave out, though. At the end of the day, having a baby ain't up to you. It's up to the lady.
It's up to the lady.
She says yes, then okay.
Yes.
Well, it's not really up to the lady either. I thought you were going to say it's up to God, but I think really Chun Kit's answer shows how deliberate I think young people are nowadays. It's really a very conscious thinking about, is this going to be a good future? Do I have enough time? Do I have enough? Have I amassed enough? Is there caregiving? And it's a very deliberate process. It's not an automatic. Kind of like,
have
okay,
a child,
yeah, get married, boom, and then I'm done with it, and then I'll deal with it along the way. There's a lot of desire, I think now that there's sort of self-actualization, and people want to make sure I'm in the right position and headspace, and that differs from person to person.
It does.
Absolutely.
It does.
Absolutely.
Chu Sian, from a lady's point of view, does your opinion differ from Jun Kit?
I think definitely there's a lot more that goes into saying yes to wanting a baby apart from the financial aspect. So for myself, I truly believe in climate change and having to improve upon it, because really the people who suffer are not us, but the younger generations that grow up in the future. So I absolutely agree with him in terms of creating a climate. Whether would I want my child to grow up in something this volatile?
But you are doing something for the environment, which is absolutely fantastic. The future is going to grow up with those roads.
10 years ago, you wouldn't have heard these answers on
No, you
panel.
wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
At all.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is quite a change.
Okay, shall we move on
Yes,
to the
next one.
segment? You can introduce that.
Strengthening our social compact, building a Singapore made for families. Now, Serangoon is a bustling neighborhood with many young families here. I'm sure many would agree that supporting families is very important. Now, I've heard many people are excited about the increase in paid paternity leave from 2 to 4 weeks, and that there is more support for first-timer families to secure HDB housing. As such, additional BTO ballots for certain categories of first-timers, and an increase in CPF housing grants for first-timers buying resale flats. How does that strike you, Jun Kiat?
Well, for me, as I've also alluded to earlier, it's actually a really good measure, at least to provide some form of assurance for us younger folks when we want to purchase a house, especially. I mean, there is a statistic that says that 40% of first-timer applicants actually turn down their BTO applications. So there's even a new measure that came out that says that it will penalize people who get a flat but actually choose to reject it. And along with the fact that certain categories of first-timers get the additional chance, as well as the paid paternity leave, I would say those are quite good for us in terms of believing that we actually can get a house. I mean, nowadays with housing prices, rental prices seemingly skyrocketing, even though I must say those might be the rare few that is actually really very highly priced. There are still quite a few that is decently priced, but with the additional support measures, it would ensure that young people like us can actually get a flat, and that will be really good lah. And I feel at the end of the day for us, especially as young people, when we want to get a flat, it's really about staying in that flat. It's really about wanting to build our lives and possibly a family in that flat. So I know my parents love to buy a flat to sell, because in terms of the financial aspect of it. But I take a slightly different approach to it. I feel like a flat should be a home. If you want to sell it, sure, but that shouldn't be the main priority. And I believe a lot of the young people also feel that way. It's
So
a
your
home
nest
first.
egg, not your investment, almost.
That's
Almost.
really interesting. I'd like to get my kids to talk to you, because they all got their flats and they're all going, okay,
It's time
I'm
to
just going to
sell."
wait for the price to go up and then I'm going to sell.
What about you, Chu Sian? Do you share Jun Kiat's perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So I think something interesting you brought up was the punitive measures, one of the penalties. So I felt that apart from just keep increasing the grants and having that punitive measure actually does make a very coherent, a very comprehensive policy of making sure that the people who get the flats are the ones who really need it and really want it, rather than being very picky or just trying out, and then if they don't get the one that is the most ideal, rejecting it. Then what about it? It's not fair. That's what I would say. So I really like the fact that this measure is out. But I think apart from that, I think someone mentioned something about the paternity leave.
Yes.
So I think that in Singapore, the stereotype, that fathers taking leave just to take care of their children, it's more than just the whole financial aspect of things, but a lot of stigma behind it.
How do you mean?
So I think there was a statistics that a lot of paternity leave was not fully utilized. So by increasing it again, it really doesn't solve the root problem of why is it not fully utilized, even in that 2 weeks.
So I think it goes to mindsets, like what Chusen was saying, because very often when, it's very visible, right? When the woman is pregnant, she's about to go off and give birth, people are like, yes, okay, maternity leave.
She deserves it.
She deserves it, a man, But for men, I think sometimes it's a stigma of, what about your career? Or like, you're going to pause and be away for a month. How does that affect you as a leader? And this is what we've heard as well among people. So while the increase in leave doesn't settle the mindset issue. I think what we really hope it does is to send a signal that, yeah, it's okay. I mean, in some of the European countries, I think it's like up to 6 months
Yes.
of,
It is.
of maternity leave. And it's so normal because you want to be able to spend that time with your child and have both mom and dad both equally important, showing different kinds of love to their child. So hopefully, I think we should normalize this
Absolutely.
more,
I think so.
And it's also support for the wife, right, who's just gone through...
Absolutely. She
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing it on her own anyway. Yeah, okay. So we've touched on our first topic for the day, that was strengthening our social impact, building a Singapore made for families. Now we're going to move on to our second theme. And remember, if you are watching us on our Kiss92 Facebook page, you can always input your questions and we will get to it a little later on. So our second theme for today is growing our economy and equipping our workers. Now, other than supporting families, the budget also seemed very focused on growing our economy and upskilling workers, which is very timely as the pandemic changed the geopolitical landscape and climate change has affected many jobs around the world. For example, the government has committed to investing more in local enterprises by setting aside $1 billion to the Singapore Global Enterprise Initiative. Now, I know, Chu Sian, you touched on this a little earlier on. They're also piloting the job skills integrators to develop industry-level training as well as facilitate job matching. So, Nadia, now there are concerns that these business support measures might encourage businesses to become a little too reliant on the government. How do you think the measures will help to grow the economy in the long run?
Yeah, I think one of the ones that Chu Sian said, and she'll be able to feel this personally, was really the focus on innovation. I think during COVID-19, the truth is that it hit a lot of our businesses very badly, and when it hits our businesses badly, it also hits our employees, who are Singaporeans, really badly. So we've had to do a lot over the past years, to tide over through COVID. But moving forward, the support is also on upskilling, supporting mature workers, having new industries, green jobs, for example, for young people to go into. And that's why the title of the budget is really about moving forward in a new era. So this effort on innovation, on enterprise, supporting our workers is really to make sure that as we try and grow the economy and as we transition out of COVID, there is this support still for workers.
Chu Sian, your startup, what do you think of the measures? How does it help businesses? How does it help workers?
Definitely very excited to tap onto the the enhanced innovation tax scheme. But I think in terms of workers, employees side, I will definitely, because the people that I need in my startup need vast amount of experience in the waste management and construction industry. This experience, the younger, fresh graduates do not have. So where I see it coming is that I would love to hire young graduates to come in to learn from these older workers with the experience. They don't have to make all the mistakes that they did, but also be able to learn from it. So what I would like to tap on is on the senior employment scheme and things like that. So there is definitely something, because as a startup, definitely very difficult for me to hire people in that range and afford the salary for the elderly. Yep. So that's something that I would love to tap on.
Okay, so Junkit, you're a third-year student, right, at SMU. So I assume you're about to enter the workforce in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah.
Do you think, what concerns do you have? And do you think anything that was mentioned in the budget would help to alleviate your concerns?
In terms of the concerns that I have, I feel like it's a thing amongst the younger folks now, that when we find a job, we want to find a job that triangulates between what we like, our interest and passion, as well as a decent pay, such that we can live and survive. And the last one is about opportunities which the job offers. So being able to find a job like that, especially for myself, it's something that I'm concerned with. For example, if let's say I'm not able to find a job that I'm interested in but it pays well, do I bite the bullet and go for it? Because especially in a climate of rising prices, needing to support our families and ourselves, that might be the only option. So the concern that I would have is ideally not being able, or rather being able to find a job that meets all these three of my needs. But however, I also understand that you don't always get what you want. And sometimes you have to start off by hitting one of your goals first and one of your objectives first before you can meet the others. So regarding the budget-wise, I must admit I'm not the most well-versed in terms of the jobs measures. But I would say that I've seen a lot of the measures that actually support all the workers, support especially workers in the gig economy as well, of all sorts of trades, such that it provides assurances that when we enter the workforce, we aren't left alone per se, that there is always support for us. And I think that is one of the more reassuring things as I enter the workforce.
I just want to pick up on something. You want a job that deals with your passion, good pay, but you said, would you bite the bullet if the pay was right?
And the passion was not there.
And the passion was not
Right.
there. I grew up in a different time. I grew up in stable job, good job, pay money, take.
Yeah.
It was different. It was a very different time. Do you see, because you said you might be willing to bite the bullet for the pay, do you see yourself as the average young Singaporean?
Well, I think as the cost of living, as things get more expensive, it would become the average where we look at pay rather than look at job scope in order to determine what's a good job for us. So for now, maybe not, because I know a lot of my friends would like to pursue their interests, but I know a far lot more that, for example, nowadays, the recent graduate employment survey actually came out a couple of months back, and it shows that computer science students are the highest. There's really a lot of my friends that purely join the computer science for that pay, and there's the term where you call it finance brothers, like fin bros or fin sis. Yeah, there's so many of them that would like to join the banking sector as well because of that pay, and it's something that some of them don't like at all. So it might be something that is a rising trend, and those that buck the trend might become the minority. That's from my own personal observations. Of my friends.
Wow. So finances is like top of the list there. You want to say something, Chusen?
No. I think apart from finances, one of the things that I have seen is, heard from people trying to employ the younger generation is that I think the first question is, do I get to work from home? So there's a lot of that work-life balance that a lot of younger generation really prioritize, and that could really be a deal breaker, whereby if I don't get to work from home, I won't take the job at all. So I think it's not only finances, but also people are prioritizing,
It's interesting that you bring that up, because surveys have been done, and the average work-life balance is 43% work, 57%
Balance. Or life.
57% life.
The desire.
Yeah, so I want 57% to be all about me, and 43% to
Which
be
is
about
fair
work.
enough, I think. I mean, I feel
Fair-
like you should
fair
come
breakdown?
first, right? What do you think, Junkit?
Because I see work-life balance as 50-50. I'll be honest with you, it's 50-50,
But do you get 50-50 though? You see it as 50-50, but do you get 50-50?
I do.
Okay.
Because of how I manage my time.
You are intentional
It's
on
not
getting that
about.
50-50.
It's not only about the company offering you work-life balance. You have got
to make the intention
Excuse me.
to have
You've got to
that.
have the intention. I'm going to balance it. I have to find a way.
And I think it's really, my personal thought is that it's dynamic, right? Some days, when things are really going rough at work, the entire team needs to buckle down. You're not going to be the one to say, "Hey, sorry, I want to go and lead the
balance
team
my life
in
now."
the middle of everything," right? But at the same time, where there's a crisis at home, for example, your elderly parent is ill, or your child is ill, you also want that assurance that it's okay. I can go and take these 2 hours. I can come back and I can count him the rest later. So I think it's dynamic. Personally, I think it's dynamic. I think some days work is going to be 80%, life is going to be 20%. Other days, life is going to be 80%, 20%. it's also about how you engage that with the companies. And I think as we see new generations of business owners as well, we are definitely navigating that in a different way.
Yeah, I think we are.
Chusian, do you get your work-life balance?
Yeah, I think that's something I wanted to chime in. So myself, as well as a lot of startup founders that I've spoken to, I think it's a lot of 80% work,
yeah.
20%
20%
life. But I think the biggest difference is that in terms of my own startup, I believe in the change and impact that I'm creating, which really it's able to drive me to go to that 80% of work. And a lot of other startup founders that I speak with as well, they really believe in what they're doing.
So
I
it's
think
the bigger picture,
yeah.
basically.
So I think that, prioritizing as well. So in terms of hours, if we're actually fighting for a greater cause, or we really believe in the impact we're making, I think at 80% work, it's not an issue for now.
It'll balance out later on.
I've got to say, I love these comments. I hope you guys are absorbing these comments, because these comments are really, really important.
Can I add something?
Of
to
course.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I know I'm just a student, but I believe that work-life balance also applies to students also. But you call it study-life balance. So a lot of people, whether it be peer pressure, pressure by their parents, pressure by themselves, they keep on studying and studying and studying up to the point where they have no life at home. So for example, they don't do things like your extracurricular activities, they don't go out and play and have friends, or even if they do, it's just a small portion of their life. So I feel like this work-life balance conversation can be applied to students as well, and to people like of the younger generation, especially those who are in secondary school, in their polytechnics, their junior colleges, because it's so important for the development of the child that we also have our own time to decompress, rather than, for example, going from enrichment class to enrichment class, tuition to tuition. So that's something that thankfully I didn't experience, but I know some of my friends, they really, really are going from class to class, class to class. It's really quite jarring, and I really feel that there is a need for students also to practice this work-life balance, and for parents to also not to pressurize them so much.
Mom and Dad, you listening?
Yeah, thank you
so.
for that. I mean, we always think about people who are in the work job scope, but we don't really think about the study life balance as well. Chusian?
Yeah, I think what he mentioned really makes sense. I've been through that tuition everyday thing, and when I was growing up, I was thinking I don't want my child to go through that. So the thing is that, but if they don't go through that, then can they actually, compete in such a stressful environment? So then I think it goes back to, would I want a child to be growing up in that stressful environment again? So it's like I mentioned.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle. I had the same conversation with someone the other day about the pressures on a child are not put there by the system. The pressures are put there by the expectations of parents, the expectations of society, not the system. The system itself works. It's the pressures that parents and society puts on the kids. Okay, next segment. Support for Singaporeans. The government's announced some support for Singaporeans in the budget to offset GST increases and cope with inflation. I think we're coping a little better than the UK is. The UK is in a bit of a mess, but we're doing all right. Let's start with Jun Kit. Rising cost of living has been a key concern among the youth. The increase in GST to 8%. Does this have an effect on your aspirations for the future?
In terms of aspirations, I feel like it might affect because, again, if we go back to the conversation about jobs that pay well, some of us might have to forego our passions for specifically that. But I also know that inflation, everything, the prices of rising, actually affect a lot of things closer to home. I have some friends who are experiencing the price rising of their halls, for example, when they stay in university. Things such as food as well are rising. It's something that at the end of the day, we might not be able to control, but what we can do as individuals in society, or even as groups of friends is to really help each other out. I mean, at the end of the day, there is the budget that provides us with relief in terms of finances, even in terms of utilities, in terms of our S&CC charges. But those can only go so far. The government can only help us so far, but for the rest of it, I feel personally that we also must take a personal interest in helping not only ourselves, but our friends and family as well. So there are many social support agencies out there. There are many different types of schemes out there, be it in your organization, be it in the schools even, that can help financially offset this kind of things. So I feel that at the end of the day, there are ways and measures which we can uplift each other up, such that we don't have to really think about foregoing our aspirations, our dreams, but we can support each other in terms of achieving them together. For example, if my friend wants to pursue a career that doesn't pay well, hey, we can go and chip in to support that friend, at least while he gets his feet wet, while he experiments a bit. I mean, that's what friends are for at the end of the day. So I feel like as much as the budget is helping us, we also must help ourselves, we must help our friends, and together that whole kampong spirit that we talk about must still come true today lah. So I feel that as an individual, it surely, yes, it affects, but hey, we can do something more as groups of friends or groups in our society lah.
You're so sweet. You're just talking about like beyond the government support. You're talking about on the ground support, building a community, making sure your family, your friends are taken care of, and you get taken care of by them. That's a very different perspective that I haven't heard.
Yeah, you
yet.
don't hear that very often.
No,
today.
you don't. Nadia, why do you think, I mean, the GST has to increase the way it has in an era of high inflation?
Yeah, I mean, if we, maybe we'll break it down into three different parts, right? I think the first is inflation, the second is GST, and the third is the different assurances that we've seen through budget 2023 and beyond. So the reality is, inflation, Singapore is a price taker, not a price maker, because we're so small, we're buffeted by things that happen overseas. It may feel that, the Russia-Ukraine war is so far away, but the impact on the world, the impact on energy prices, on food, has been so high. And like, FD said, in places like UK, etc., you feel the inflation really, really strongly. So that's the inflation sort of basket. GST increase, I mean, this is something that has been talked about, I think, since 2018 or so. It was forecasted to give a very clear heads up. Look, 2018, Singapore is one of those countries that, has been able to think far ahead, right? And so when we think far ahead, we know that the wallet needs to get bigger because we have more needs and we need to cater for more needs. So that was first forecasted in 2018, that it was going to happen sometime in 2021, 2025. I think before that, the last GST increase was something like 2007. And if you compare Singapore to Asia, I think the average VAT GST in Asia is at about 11+%, and I think globally it's about 19%. So we're talking about 7, 8, 9 sort of percent, which is still under, because when you think about wallet, how do you earn money, right? I mean, if you think about your home wallets, there are many different ways you earn money. Sure, you have your main job, maybe you got your side hustle, maybe you got some investments, etc. And that exactly is what it is for Singapore's overall budget as well. So the GST is one part of the budget, but we also talk about other taxes, other ways, other investments to bring money in for our people. And the handouts, just the last portion. I mean, I don't really like the term handouts. I think it really is to ensure that things are within essentials, are within reach of our people, which is why a lot of it is very targeted and surgical. For example, MediSave, for example, helping young families, etc., helping you achieve something for housing. And then, of course, the broader ones such as CDC vouchers or the one-off payments are to cope with that, to trust people that you have something that you might need to pay for in your life. And this is the one-off payment to try and alleviate and help you with it. But I really appreciated the comments from Chungkit as well, that I think, even in your own family or home life, right, how much you earn is one thing, but it's not going to sort out everything for you just because there's a budget. It really is how we help each other, how we manage ourselves. I mean, Singaporeans are really bad at savings.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're really. I think there were some statistics. Singaporeans are really bad at savings. So, it's about a chance for us to really kind of look at things as a whole and manage that together.
I just got one very blunt question. I know you don't like the term handouts, but let's use the term handouts. Are they sustainable? Because we keep giving them out.
Yeah, and some people are asking for more, FD. Yeah, I think that the way that we've tended to function, and I think it's a generally undisputed principle that the people who need it more, we give more. On average, everyone gets help, but it's a collective responsibility. It's a collective wallet that we try to put together, which is why GST, it does affect the everyday person. But if you look at some of the other taxes that were increased, it's higher property taxes or higher luxury car taxes, which is going to contribute to this budget as well. And these distributions that are given to people is really to cope with the short-term inflation. I don't think it's going to be a forever thing, and that's why it's in stages as well, right? So we say, okay, 2021 you get something, 2022 you get something. It's for you to be able to think about that in stages of your life.
Okay. What about you, Chu Sian? How do you think? What do you think of the support measures?
So I definitely agree with Nadia that in terms of the collectiveness that the GST it's taxed on the everyday, but then it makes it very fair because then there is the other taxes of luxury, and then one of the things was the increase in the sin tax or something like that. I think the higher taxation on cigarettes. So I feel that that is a way for the government to make the money back, but also at the same time really trying to discourage the smoking of cigarettes and things like that. So I feel that the way that the increase in GST and taxes, it was very well thought out in terms of the tiers and that the everyday Singaporeans doesn't bear too much of it, but it's the people who can that makes it a more collective thing, like you're helping the people who actually can do something to help the bottom people to defray a lot of costs as well.
And I mean, coming from the ground, and really a lot of my residents have appreciated some of these things, especially the timeliness of it. So for example, it was before Chinese New Year. A lot of them were telling me, I can go and get a bit extra groceries. Now this year we can finally have people coming back to my house. And I think, there are many different versions of the Singapore life. And a lot of times, some of us may not be able to see the real difficulties that different families face. So I do think that, the reception that I have had on the ground is that some of these amounts have gotten, really helped the families in their lives.
They have been appreciated then.
Okay, so we've covered many, many topics. There are quite a few of you here. We're going to open the floor to questions. We've got about 12 minutes to handle any questions that you may have on the budget. Doesn't matter what the question is. If there's something you don't understand, if there is a question you have, just raise your hand. All we'll need you to do is to state your name and the question clearly. That's all we need, okay? So just raise your hand. You don't even have to raise it way up here. You can just put it down here.
Just like,
we have spotters.
Just show
it's
us a signal.
Just show us a signal.
Anyone at all. If you want to ask a question, we have a microphone. If you're a bit shy over the microphone, that's okay. You can just ask any questions that you may have. Our Frida in pink, the Kiss92 T-shirt, has a microphone ready for you. So whatever question you may have, Nadia will be able to answer it for you.
You can also put it in the comments.
There we go. We got a gentleman in the back.
Ah, good.
Hello, thank you very much. I dropped in quite late. Just to qualify, I'm Charles Lee. I'm not quite familiar with the budget, but I did read some stuff on it. Thank you for the dialogue, especially with the younger generation. In general, my question, which I wrote down in the survey, it was viewed as, I think, good budget, but since we are a lot talking about green movement and the green plan and all the good stuff, and a lot of employment in the green sustainability jobs area, it appears that the budget does not really have any incentives or stuff related to in general sustainability initiatives or sustainability in that arena. Can you comment on that, especially maybe the young lady? Yeah, thank you.
Chusian.
So I think I do agree definitely. I actually hope to see more green initiatives and push in this current budget. But as a startup itself, I have seen a lot of support that for the green technology as well as sustainable initiatives by the different agencies and authorities, whereby to qualify for such a grant or for such a scheme, you need to prove that you are helping impact the environment in some way or another. So I would say that even though it's not explicitly in the budget itself, these authorities and agencies, they all do have their own initiatives and grants to support a lot of green movements. Yeah.
And maybe as someone who's in the MSE GPC, I think, we've made a lot of big environmental announcements over the past 2-3 years in terms of Singapore Green Plan, increasing carbon tax. This year we also talked about the recycling schemes, etc. And we need to execute on them. Right?
Okay.
Once you've announced them, you need to be able to see it through. It's a multi-year effort. And so I think a lot of the effort this year, other than, of course, things like coping with climate change, the Coastal Protection Fund, is really about making sure when we say we're going to do something, we actually execute it. Yeah, we're not just going to say, hey, we're going to do this green thing, but we're really going to execute on different plans. And I think this year it's about executing on what we've announced in the past few years as well.
Okay, so you're walking the walk now of the talk that happened back then.
That's
Back
right.
then, yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
We do have questions coming through on various
Thank you very
platforms.
much, Charles.
Thank you very much. Another one is, and anyone here can answer this, it's an interesting question. How do we cope with inflation?
Jun Kiat, maybe you.
Yeah.
How do you cope?
How do you cope with it?
inflation?
The simple answer that I have in my mind is stop buying things or doing things that let's say more expensive. Okay, let me qualify this a bit. So as a student, for example, when we go to school, normally we take the train, we take the bus, but sometimes when you're lazy, you call a Grab, you call a Gojek. So things like this can be lessened or can be cut completely. Or for example, when you want to have a meal, you can go to, let's say, a coffee shop, a hawker center to get a cheaper meal. But sometimes, your friends will be like, hey, let's go to a restaurant in a mall. And especially, SMU is surrounded by malls.
True.
So it's really tempting. And then let's get some better food. Let's splash $20 at one shot in one meal. And that's how you don't deal with inflation by spending more. So for me as a student, what that would mean, it would be cutting back a lot of the luxuries, so-called. Instead of drinking, for example, Starbucks, you can go to your kopitiam, drink your kopi O, your kopi, things like that. I know some people don't like it, but I feel if you really need a coffee fix,
That's a great coffee fix.
Yeah, that's a great coffee fix. You don't need to get your specialty coffees.
True.
So it's about spending less, being more mindful about where your money goes to, and especially knowing that sometimes the money that you spend as a student is not yours. If you earn to spend that money, that's good. But a lot of times, they are from our parents. And even though sometimes we may not feel the pinch, but our parents feel the pinch. So that's what I can say. We got to cut back on a lot of these things and just hunker down and just live life as frugally as we can.
Why are you not attached yet? Seriously. Why does this boy not have a girlfriend? He should be married now with
All the mothers here, can you call your daughters now? Tell them to come down.
Quickly now.
This is a good catch right here. Chusian, from a business point of view, how do we cope with inflation?
So on my end, so our team is already very lean, being a startup. I would say that a lot of costs that I've seen, comes from, I think one of the biggest costs that I've seen is the electricity, doubling, tripling in terms of price. So I think one of the biggest way to cope with inflationary measures would be to invest in technology, to be more energy efficient. There are a lot of grants for energy efficiency and things like that. So tap on them and to try to defray your everyday cost and things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Nadia, we have a question for you. How do you think Budget 2023 is helping retirees? You're in Ang Mo Kio, and you said a lot of them are close to senior age or about to hit, a lot of them above 55 years old. So how do you think Budget 2023 is helping them?
Definitely. So there are different measures for seniors, and I think one of the things that we had talked about was, in case anybody hasn't tried it yet, there is a Support Go Where calculator that you can just Google, and I think you just log in with SingPass or something like that, and you automatically will be able to see all the measures that apply to you. And so for a lot of my seniors, that's where they noted the things like the Medisave top-ups, the annual Medisave top-ups that will happen over the next 2 years. And actually for most of the efforts, there's going to be a senior bonus. So for example, even the cost of living payment, there's a senior bonus. If you look at the Silver Support Scheme that applies to our seniors and things like that. So it would really depend from retiree to retiree or senior to senior. So my suggestion is try out the Support Go Where calculator, and it'll automatically tell you how much and even when.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna hit
actually
your
tried
account.
it. It's dead
Oh,
simple.
did you?
Yeah.
It is, right?
It's dead simple to use.
So the
It is
website, if you don't already know, is supportgowhere.life.gov.sg, or just in Google, key in Support Go Where, and the website will
Yeah,
pop up.
it's really easy to use, and it's really informative. I did it the other day. It's absolutely brilliant. Anybody else got questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We'll get a microphone to this gentleman in
Yeah.
blue in the front.
Sorry, can I ask some questions?
Don't apologize.
It's okay.
I'm the ask MP.
Nadia.
Nadia, yeah.
Can you help me? Some people like 65 years old coming to retire, want to find a job. Ask the CPF, don't ask people, ask 65 must retire. Give 65-year-old extend to more, means people want to up working, let him working.
Okay.
Because now a lot of people retire, not enough money.
Yeah.
And the second thing, I hope your young generation look into it. Your MP must look into it. Now a lot of taxi driver, they say that I also selling hawker also. I got uncle selling taxi driver. Cannot earn so much money. All the crap take, no people. There are old people sometimes, like my mom. My mother stays at Ang Mo Kio GRC there. Old house, want to call taxi. No taxi. Now taxi very, very less. Singapore got so many taxi stands. No taxi. Then second thing, I write into the crap, CEO. I go there office, give the secretary tear away my letter.
Okay.
Then second thing, you listen to me first. Second thing,
Okay.
I very fed up, no. Tear away my letter, okay lah. Then second thing, I write in again, they don't answer. I hope more you all, like Ang Mo Kio GRC, look into it lah. Bring out the matter to the parliament or what lah. Ask him to ask the CEO like this one dialogue. Then people will answer in question. Set up the telephone number. Then on the web also got telephone number. How people download. All the people no money. Then pay the debtor. Then sometimes people call the driver don't want to come. Don't want to come.
Okay, I know where you're going with this. But I think the interesting question was, 65 years old, how does he keep working?
Yeah, thank you. And actually a lot of my seniors share that with me as well. Some of them from a financial perspective, although for a lot of them, it actually really is that social engagement and
Yeah.
that active keeping active, being able to be in a social situation with their peers, and also actually learning from the different generations. So this year, I think the senior employment credit was announced that it's going to be extended up to 2025. There are also certain senior CPF measures, and really, this kind of skilling efforts, because a lot of our seniors actually really want to learn and continue contributing to Singapore. So a lot of the different skilling efforts, check out Skills Future, ESG, workforce, but I think the important thing is employers' mindsets must also change. Because sometimes we see they're at older parts of their life, maybe the job redesign needs to change, maybe certain, they're not able to do things exactly the same way, but they can serve in other ways. And I think actually Chu Sian was talking about how in her company, that's what she wants to see as well, right?
Definitely. Because apart from they have 30 years experience of working in the construction industry, let's say, myself, I have less than 10. So the amount of experience that they have, they don't actually, they can actually translate to a lot of valuable life lessons for me, not just in terms of work, but also in terms of when interacting with them. I do learn a lot from them. So if they do stay in the workforce, I believe that when we hire young graduates, they can also learn a lot from this elderly workers as well.
Awesome
Okay,
stuff.
thank you very much.
Okay, we need to wrap up. Any last thoughts on the budget, Junkit? Last thoughts?
I think that if there's one thing that I would have one last thought is that the budget is done with good intentions, I believe, from the government to really support all the different demographics of society, really especially those who need it the most, as what Nadia has mentioned. But for me, I would just like to leave with one last thought that the budget is just a budget for to me and I believe to a lot of people, it's just a budget. And beyond the budget that plans out the government's expenditure for the next financial year, there are things that we as individuals, we as members of society, we as Singaporeans can actually do rather than just relying on the budget all the time. For example, if the budget gives us some money, that's great, and all of us appreciate it. It helps to relieve the cost of living and things like that. But there are things that we can change, or rather we can shift our mindsets towards to be able to create a society that all of us want to see. For example, if we want to create a more gracious society, if we want to create a society that's more inclusive, it really starts with us. It doesn't start with the government, it doesn't start with a budget, but rather it starts with all of us and our mindsets. For example, if us young people, we want to raise the fertility rate, for example, we want to have more kids, then at the end of the day, it's all about how we view certain situations, how we view society as a whole, and how we view each other and our relationships with each other. So I feel that at the end of the day, yes, the budget is good, yes, the budget helps us a lot, but there is so much more that we can do beyond the budget. And personally, I feel that each and every one of us can really step up, can really rise up to the challenge and really help in terms of communication within ourselves, what we want to the government, with our friends and the different agencies that are around, and even different non-profits that are around as well. We can come together to create a society that we want to see and truly what Singapore is like when we move towards a new era, like what the budget says.
Okay.
Future MP in the making.
Yeah, I think so.
Chu Sian, anything from you?
For myself, so from the business side of things, I really appreciated how the government really focused a lot on innovation in terms of incentive, grants, and things like that. But I think like what Jun can say, a budget is just a budget unless it's utilized. So I really do hope that companies take up this offers, incentives, and schemes to really innovate in the future, not just in terms of improving the climate, but also it's able to defray costs and things like that. So yeah, really hope to see higher take-up rate on all these different schemes.
Nadia, anything to say about the budget?
Well.
Final words?
Well, for the past hour, I just
Final
really want to
thoughts.
say thank you. Thank you so much for having us. And I really appreciated hearing from my fellow REACH panel advisors as well. And everyone online as well as here, thank you. I think really the budget is an announcement that happens once a year. There's a lot of engagement that goes up prior to that, starting from usually about December every year. There's a lot of engagement where you can have your say, your voice about where you hope the government dollar goes towards. And beyond just this one-off once a year announcement, if you do know anybody who does need help, please feel free to reach out to your community centers or to the nearest family service center. Help is always available, and we do our best to make sure that help reaches, especially those who need it the most. So thank you so much.
If Singaporeans want to give feedback on the budget, where do they go?
Well,
To Reach?
Yeah, come.
Directly to Reach?
Yes, sure.
Okay, cool. All right.
Reach out to Reach.
Reach out to Reach. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. It was good.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. Again, Nadia has said, you can reach out to the website on Reach to have more of your input looked at. And thank you very much, Nadia. Thank you very much, Jun Kiet, Chu Sien, for being here with us this afternoon.
I got one question. What did you walk away with
Today?
from all of this?
I really echo what Jun Kiet said, that beyond the budget,
Yes.
it is also about looking more at your needs than your wants.
Yeah.
Cutting back on what you can to be able to deal with the inflation, supporting where you can, getting support from where you can, like what Chu Sien has said. If you have a business, there are tons of grants out there that offset what we're trying to do. So yeah, I mean, those are my takeaways for
It's
today.
interesting. A budget is just a budget.
It's
At
just a
the end of
framework,
the
yeah.
day, it's you.
Your mindset.
That's what I walked away with. It's your mindset. It's your mindset. And I want to thank them because I learned something today. I like that. I like that.
Thank you very much, everyone here on the panel. Thank you very much for sitting with us through this 1 hour.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Kiss92, all the great songs in one place. 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 Kiss 92, all the great songs in one place. Kiss 92, all the great songs in one place. Kiss 92, all the great songs in one place. Kiss 92, all the great songs in one place.